There are moments in life that look ordinary on the outside, but in reality, they shake the invisible world in ways you can't even imagine. You've already lived through one of those moments. You didn't schedule it, you didn't prepare for it, and you probably didn't even realize how important it was at the time. But something shifted, quietly, subtly, and yet powerfully. That one decision, that one pause, sent a ripple far beyond you. A spiritual tremor rolled through unseen places, and it broke something wide open, something that had been locked for generations. It wasn't because you made a scene, it wasn't because you shouted louder than everyone else, it wasn't even because you tried to prove a point. The power of that moment came from alignment. You made a choice that no one in your bloodline had ever dared to make. You stopped a cycle that had been running for so long, people thought it was permanent. You felt the pull of the past, the weight of familiar pain, the echo of old patterns calling you back home. But you walked away. You turned your back on what was destroying you, and that quiet courage rearranged things in ways you can't yet see. Most people think breakthroughs arrive in a flash, with noise and fireworks, with some dramatic announcement. But the deepest changes don't always come from chaos. They come from alignment, from the still, trembling moments when your actions match truth. And whether you realized it or not, you had one of those moments. In silence, you broke a contract that was never yours to carry, a lie disguised as wisdom, a wound disguised as discipline, a burden disguised as family history. Whatever it was, you chose not to bow to it anymore. And the very instant you stopped agreeing with it, everything began to change. This isn't just about your healing, it goes far deeper. You didn't only free yourself, you cut the chains that had wrapped themselves around your entire lineage. The invisible grip that held your parents, your grandparents, and the ones before them. It loosened the moment you refused to let it define you. That moment wasn't small, it was history-making. You broke something open that had been waiting for someone brave enough to interrupt it. Here's the truth most people never hear. Cycles, whether spiritual or emotional, don't automatically dissolve with time. They keep repeating generation after generation unless someone interrupts them. And heaven, God, the universe, however you see it, will often let those cycles continue unless someone steps into them with purity. Not perfection, not performance, but purity. That is what you did. You might not have thought much of it, but it was enormous. Maybe you chose love when ego screamed at you to retaliate. Maybe you chose silence instead of revenge. Maybe you walked away instead of begging someone to see your worth. Small decisions, yes, but not small in impact. Heaven saw every one of them. Heaven saw you pause when anger burned in your chest. Heaven saw you whisper a prayer when bitterness was easier. Heaven saw you unclench your fists when you could have fought back. Those are the moves that rearrange systems, the moments that shift patterns, the quiet choices that reset entire timelines. Because here's the secret. One move that doesn't follow the old script has the power to write a completely new one. That's what you did. You thought it was survival. You thought it was just getting through the storm. But from heaven's perspective, you were rewriting the forecast for everyone who comes after you. You see, the unseen world doesn't measure victory by noise or applause. It measures it by alignment. And when your heart aligned with truth, even if your hands were trembling, even if no one was watching, that was enough. That was what triggered a divine rerouting of your story. That one soul-level choice sent out a signal. You were no longer willing to settle for survival. You were ready for more. You were ready to step into authority, not just freedom for yourself, but freedom that would ripple out to others. Think about it. You thought you were simply enduring pain. But what if that pain was the very place where heaven marked you as a leader? What if that decision you made alone, with no witnesses, was the exact decision that told heaven, this one is ready. This one can carry more. That's not favoritism. That's trust. God doesn't look for perfection. He looks for availability. And you were available. You were awake enough not to numb out. You didn't use your suffering as a weapon to harm others. You didn't close your heart, even when it would have been easier to shut down. You stayed open. You stayed willing. And heaven kept score when no one else did. Now, the systems that once delayed you are being dismantled. The patterns that tried to repeat are scrambling, looking for somewhere else to land because you are no longer available for them. You're not beneath those cycles anymore. You're above them. And the moment you chose not to repeat what hurt you, something ancestral broke. Let that sink in. The addictions your parents tried to explain but couldn't conquer. The shame your grandparents wore like skin. The unspoken wounds you grew up feeling but couldn't name. They were all waiting for someone brave enough to whisper, "It ends here." And you whispered it, not with your mouth, but with your choices, with your walk, with your restraint, with your decision not to become what harmed you. That one move rewrote history. You walked away from something old and stepped into something sacred that had been waiting for someone new. And now, here you are, standing in unfamiliar territory, not because you're lost, but because you're the first in your bloodline to stand here, the first to walk these fields, the first to claim this ground. Your ancestors may have dreamed of this, but they didn't know how to step into it. That's why it feels so strange. And here's the most surprising part. It feels quiet, almost too quiet. You expected thunder, you expected fireworks, you expected to feel like the whole world changed. Instead, it feels subtle, almost calm. But don't mistake quiet for empty. The quiet you feel is proof that the storm has passed, that the old noise is gone, that you're standing in new air. Quiet isn't absence, it's peace. The silence you're walking in right now isn't punishment, it's preparation. You're in a place your family never showed you how to navigate, so of course it feels unfamiliar. Of course it feels like new territory, because it is. You're breaking new ground. You're charting a path that was waiting for someone exactly like you to walk it. And that's why heaven is leaning in right now. That's why divine eyes are fixed on you. Because when you made that soul-level decision, you didn't just survive a storm, you shifted the atmosphere. You rerouted what was written, and now a new chapter has opened. Not just for you, but for everyone who comes after you. It doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes the most powerful breakthrough enters quietly, like a deep breath you didn't know you were holding. You feel it in the stillness, in the calm that finally wraps around your spirit like a blanket. That's what it's like to step out of an old system and into something new. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady, as though you've finally inhaled air that belongs only to you. But here's the paradox. Freedom doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels exhausting. You might be looking at yourself wondering, Did anything really change? Was that moment even as significant as it felt? And yet, your atmosphere already knows. The spiritual weather around you has shifted, and everything is beginning to respond to it. Think about it. The people who once held power over you, the ones who used to pull you into chaos or ignite your pain, no longer have the same effect. Their presence feels distant now. Their grip feels weaker. You don't even notice the exact moment it happened until the next time they try to tug you back into the old story, and you realize it doesn't work anymore. You're not caught. You're not spiraling. You're standing. You used to collapse into endless explanations, giving away your energy just to prove yourself. But now, silence has become your strongest language. You don't need to defend what's already true. You used to brace yourself for every fight, every storm, every clash. But now, you quietly step out before the battle begins. That's not avoidance. That's not indifference. That's mastery. And mastery doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to draw attention. It is forged in silence, not spotlight. Let me give you an image. Picture a long corridor inside of you. On either side are doors, each labeled with something you've carried. Some were passed down to you before you even knew their names. Some were picked up along the way, disguised as survival, self-doubt, fear, comparison, the feeling of never being enough. These doors became the rooms you walked into again and again, as though they were the only options available. You thought they were permanent. You thought they were yours. But something happened. The moment you made that quiet, courageous decision, those doors began to dissolve. Their frames are weakening, their locks no longer holding. And up ahead, in that same hallway, there's another door. It's different. It has your name etched into it, not borrowed labels or inherited pain. This one doesn't read answered prayer or new season. It reads first of its kind. Because that's what you are now. The first in your line to stand here. The first to feel pain and not recycle it. The first to walk through fire and emerge with your spirit whole. The first to refuse the familiar chaos and choose a peace no one modeled for you. This is the harder road. There's no guidebook, no script passed down, no chorus of voices behind you saying, that's the right way. It's lonely sometimes, it's uncharted, but heaven knows. Heaven is not silent. While the world may stay quiet, heaven is roaring with recognition. What you thought was unnoticed has been thundering in the unseen realm. And because of that, what comes next isn't just favor, it's foundation. Every moment you held your tongue when betrayal cut deep, heaven saw it. Every ounce of restraint that no one thanked you for was counted. Every time you could have chosen destruction but instead chose wisdom, heaven took note. You didn't act from your wounds, you acted from your true self. And heaven's response was simple. That's enough. Shift the pattern, rewrite the blueprint, build something new. Because this isn't just about tearing down what hurt you. You weren't just breaking something, you were constructing something. Every choice you made to guard your peace became brick and mortar. Every time you resisted the pull of validation and chose quiet confidence instead, it became framework. Every moment you loved, without keeping score, even when love wasn't returned, became structure. Without realizing it, you were building. A spiritual architecture has been rising from the silence of your choices. And now, what you've built isn't only for you. You've carved a pathway others will walk with more ease. Your restraint has become permission for someone else to choose differently. Your integrity has become evidence that another way is possible. You've shown that the cycle doesn't have to continue, that love can rewrite the story. That is your legacy. That is your blueprint. And because of that, the shift you began in spirit is beginning to appear in the physical. Watch closely. Opportunities will show up that seem random, but they aren't. Doors will open, not because of chance, but because your name now carries spiritual clearance it didn't carry before. Favor that once felt distant will start arriving suddenly, almost rushing, as if it's been waiting for you to grow into this version of yourself. The old patterns, they're no longer present tense, they're history. The grip they once had is broken. So if your world feels unfamiliar right now, if peace feels strange and the quiet feels unsettling, don't doubt it. Don't question it. You're not lost. You're being remade. You're not wandering. You're being positioned. This quiet is not absence. It's alignment. Because this story is bigger than you. You broke something that had claimed generations. You ended what others excused. You silenced what others normalized. And in the very moment when everything could have gone backward, you quietly moved forward. Heaven saw it, and heaven said, let's build a future on that. So as you stand here in this new atmosphere, let this truth settle into you. You are not standing in emptiness. You are standing in foundation. The blessing isn't rushing toward you just to comfort you. It's here to establish something lasting. It's not a fleeting gift. It's a blueprint, a framework, a future. What you've built in silence will echo for generations. And what you've broken will never bind you again.